If you don't want to see, if you don't want to let it be, if you can't set yourself free, take your mind into another place and time. Free yourself up to find the universal mind. The universal mind. The universal mind.
Live from Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Mark Summers, and now, here's your host, Dan Harary.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Dan Harary, your host, and veteran Hollywood publicist, among other things. Nice to see you all again. Thank you for your emails and your kind words. I really appreciate it. We have a really fun guest tonight, but before I bring her in, just two quick things. A week from tonight, or actually a week from today, is day one of Contact in the Desert. It's the world's largest UFO conference. We have 73 guest speakers. The top UFO researchers in the world will be there. Behind me over my shoulder, you can see the logo for Contact. It's the 10th anniversary. We have this huge silver X for 10. And Richard Dolan and Nick Pope and Steve Bassett and Carolyn Corey and Katie Page and Whitley Strieber, Travis Walton and George Norrie and George Knapp. Everybody pretty much you could think of is going to be there. Get your tickets, contactinthedesert.com, May 30th through June 3rd, Indian Wells, California, near Palm Springs. I will be there as well. I'd love to meet you if you're there, contactinthedesert.com. Also, I'm very excited. I finally got a copy of my new book. This is my fourth book that I've written. Just came out the other day on Amazon. My Paranormal Life, it's called. Supernatural Stories from a Hollywood Insider. Brand new. My mother got this before I even had a copy of it. And this is my stories: ghosts, poltergeists, angelic voices, spirit guides, UFOs, weird coincidences. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun book. People have been enjoying it. So Amazon.com, My Paranormal Life. If you'd be so kind, it joins my Hollywood book, Flirting with Fame, and my UFO book, After They Came. There you go. There's the Three Musketeers back there. Okay, so our guest tonight is Shanelle Schanz. She's the granddaughter of Kenneth Arnold, and many of you probably know who Kenneth Arnold is, and maybe some of you don't. Kenneth Arnold is the first man to report a sighting of flying saucers. This was over Mount Rainier in Washington State, June 24th, 1947. Shanelle grew up close to her grandfather, and before he died, he told her, always think for yourself and don't trust the government. Sounds like wise words from a wise man. When Kenneth Arnold died in 1984, he told his family it wasn't the right time for disclosure. But Shanelle today feels that perhaps the time has finally arrived now, and we're going to talk about that. Shanelle grew up in Boise, Idaho. She moved to Vancouver, Washington, earned a pharmacy technician degree from Clark College. Then she worked at a hospital in Portland, Oregon. And then she took time off from school to raise her two daughters. From 2016 to 2020, Shanelle completed a philosophy AA degree from the College of Western Idaho. And then in early 2023, about a year and a half ago, she republished her grandfather's famous iconic book, The Coming of the Saucers, which we will be talking about. Shanelle has been a guest on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and she's appeared on many podcasts. She says she's always been very proud of her grandfather and how he changed the world. And without question, her grandfather, Kenneth Arnold's 1947 sighting is considered by virtually everyone to be the start of the modern day UFO era. Nothing serious. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, and kids of all ages, and my brother Race Hobbs, my producer, let's bring in Shanelle. Hello.
Hello.
Hey there. Oh, there's one of your dogs, right? Or is that a cat? I can't tell.
Yeah, no, that's Sasha. She decided that she wanted to be seen. So yeah.
Has
She's
Sasha seen UFOs as like your grandfather also, or maybe?
She could have. I mean, she's really into looking up in the sky and looking at squirrels in the trees. So
You know what? Can you imagine if animals like were more attuned to extraterrestrials than people? Who knows? Maybe they are, right? Who knows?
Oh yeah, I've
You
heard
don't
some
know.
stories about like dogs before a sighting happens, they act odd. So yeah, dogs. I'm sure I've seen some flying saucers.
Just a quick aside. I'm helping my daughter move out of her apartment Saturday into a much better apartment. She's been in the apartment now in West LA for 3 years. There is a ghost who lives in my daughter's bedroom.
Oh
And
wow.
for 3 years, her little dog wakes up at like 3:30 every morning, sits on the bed, and watches something walk from the closet to the door every day for 3 years.
Oh wow.
So there's a ghost. Anyway, I don't want to waste time with that. Thank you for being on my show. We have a cool little thing that the Race and I want to do for you. Race, if we could pull up that video, please.
An ordinary man in an ordinary street in America. But this man started the 1947 wave of sightings that swept the world when he claimed to have seen from his mountain rescue plane 9 disc-like objects flying at a speed of approximately 1,500 miles per hour near Mount Rainier. The date? June 24, 1947. Later, when asked by a reporter to describe how they flew, Arnold said their motion was like saucers skipping over water. In the papers the next day, the world first saw the term flying saucer.
It began.
And here we are, and we're back. So yeah, that's a cool little video, Chanel. What is Saucer Co, by the way?
Saucer Co. I mean, it was possibly a what's it called? It's probably something that my grandfather had for maybe.
Saucer Co. is it's a website owned by a couple of guys in Los Angeles that they own like a clothing company there.
Really?
Yeah, I met them in Big Bear Lake, California, about 6-7 years ago. They were 2 young kids, no, 3. There were 2 brothers and one of them's girlfriend, and their father was there helping them set up, and they had a display there, and they make some of the best UFO fashion that you can get.
Oh, that's very cool.
2 young entrepreneur college kids. They were really impressive, and they make these videos for just to promote the subject.
Okay, thank you for telling me.
That totally threw me off because I hadn't really heard of that. So.
Yeah, me too, Chanel. I found it online, and I'm like, listen, your grandfather's not with us anymore, so I thought some kind of little illustration I thought would be a lot of fun. Okay, Race, let's pull up slide number 1, and I will start my questions, and Chanel, feel free to rock and roll. Okay, Race number 1, please. Okay, all right. So Chanel, your grandfather Kenneth Arnold had a remarkable experience, right? June 24th, 1947, changed his life and launched the modern day UFO era. What was your grandfather's experience that day, as what you've heard from him or from your family?
Well, there was a lot of ridicule and debunking and harassment that he received just by reporting what he had seen, and him and Ray Palmer made up a word for that, calling it the stymie factor. But they just believe that it was the first sighting ever reported. And my grandfather found faith in the Waspy Bible. It's not really so known anymore, but In the WASPy Bible, they talk about astral entities that travel in vehicles along roadways that link levels of plateaus in the spiritual world that exists from 6 inches to 100 miles above the surface of the earth.
Wow.
And the crafts are from both worlds. And my grandfather totally believed that the flying saucers, it was like a spiritual experience. He saw them about 8 times in his lifetime. He wasn't ever public with his other sightings. And in this one article I have, he does talk about his 8th sighting in Susanville, California. And those craft almost looked transparent to him. And they almost like looked like something that would be alive. But he definitely, spent $30,000 of his own money, investigating the subject in his lifetime. And the postmaster knew exactly where he lived. He got correspondence from all over the world. There was a couple of churches that wanted to name him a prophet.
Wow.
And that was pretty, heavy. And, he definitely didn't want to be considered that way at all. He just was like an Eagle Boy Scout, and he felt like it was his duty to report what he saw. And he never even realized, what type of tidal wave it would create.
Right.
But, when he died in 1984, it wasn't the right time for disclosure. And now it is the right time to talk about this subject. And, his sighting happened 2 weeks before Roswell.
Right.
So,
right.
a lot of people talk about Roswell, but I mean, they forgot that, 2 weeks before was the first sighting by my grandfather.
Right. It's
And,
It's remarkable. It's wonderful. Race, can we see number 2, please? We have just a couple of nice shots. Here's another little animation that's supposed to be your grandfather.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Mount Rainier. Shanelle, in 2008, I was at Isetti Ranch near Mount Adams. At James Gilliland's Isetti Ranch. I had a profound UFO experience personally myself in 2008. And Mount Adams is the next mountain down. It's like a cousin to Mount Rainier. So that mountain range clearly has something going on,
Yeah, I totally believe they're portals to another dimension. These are multi-dimensional craft. I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, that's what a lot of people are coming to grips with now. They're not just from all over in space. They're multi-dimensional craft. And they could be coming from the dimension that we go to for when we die. I mean, it's just like a deep subject in my family. And of course, we don't know until we die exactly what happens. But
yeah, and then it's hard to report back, right?
Yeah, it's hard to report back. But my grandfather, he just felt like it was his duty to report what he saw, and it started this summer of saucers. Once he saw what he saw, everyone else started seeing flying saucers, and they can't explain it to this day.
Fabulous. Race number 3, please. Again, it's another little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I want to make sure there's 9. He saw 9 silvery discs.
Yeah,
correct?
9.
Okay. All right. Race number 4. Okay, this is a nice little quote there. If it's not made by our science or Army, Air Force, I'm inclined to believe that it's of extraterrestrial origin. Your grandfather believed in extraterrestrial life.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that just fantastic? Now, that's an artist rendering, obviously, of one of the 9 that he saw. Do you have that original? Is that the one that you
my mother has the original, and I have a copy of it in my house hanging up, and I have also tattoos of that on my back, 9 of them.
Do you really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, they changed. I don't really have a picture to share, but they changed formation as well. So I mean, I didn't really render them correctly because my mom, Kim Arnold, definitely had to make a point of that. But they're good. They're good. They're the rendition that everybody is used to seeing, the crescent shaped with a like cockpit kind of in the middle,
right.
That's translucent, and that's the most common one. But we also made some flying saucer jewelry that's in the family, and it's weird. My grandfather was a pioneer of this, and
he was
definitely I've always been very proud of him. In 2nd grade, I told my 2nd grade teacher, after he had passed away, who he was, and he was the first pilot to report flying saucers over Mount Rainier. She's like, "Oh, that's so sweet, honey," and that's like 1984, just not the right time, really. Yeah. Nowadays, there's the Anunnaki movie coming out. There's all sorts of wild, what people are thinking of how we were created and whatnot. There's just a lot of different ideas now of
Absolutely.
who we really could be and are.
Yeah.
Who
Well,
created us as well. They possibly, are the ones that were they're the missing DNA, whoever they may be. And they have, created our DNA to be the way that we are. But I've heard that, they fly over active missile sites and the missiles will shut off like nuclear missiles.
yes.
And,
Bob Salas talks about that. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Race number 5. All right. So this, I think, was his original drawing. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, the flying saucer. That he probably even put it in he was going to do seminars at the Knife and Fork Club, and he made pamphlets, and I'm sure that's part of it. Possibly not.
I guess his words down. Yeah, it says they did not appear to me to whirl or spin, but something in fixed position, seemed in fixed position, traveling as I have made drawings. Yeah, look at that. That's so cool. That's really cool. Okay, Race, you can take that one down. All right, Shanelle, I'd like to read you a little paragraph I've just found the other day. I've been reading this book called Crash at Corona. It's really like the true story of Roswell by Stanton Friedman and John Berlinger. And I know you knew Stanton Friedman. I never had a chance.
Yeah.
I know. We're going to show that pic. We're going to show that picture. But let me read this to you because this is from the Majestic 12 documents. I just read this the other day. It says, on June 24th, 1947, a civilian pilot flying over the Cascade Mountains in the state of Washington observed 9 flying disc-shaped aircraft traveling in formation at a high rate of speed. Although this was not the first known sighting of such objects, it was the first to gain widespread attention in the public media. That's thanks to your grandfather. Hundreds of reports of sightings of similar objects followed. Many of these came from highly credible military and civilian sources. These reports resulted in independent efforts by several different elements of the military to ascertain the nature and purpose of these objects in the interest of national defense. A number of witnesses were interviewed. There were several unsuccessful attempts to utilize aircraft in efforts to pursue these discs in flight. Public reaction bordered on near hysteria at times. In spite of these efforts, little of substance was learned about these objects until a local rancher reported that one had crashed in a remote region of New Mexico, 75 miles northwest of Roswell. So, like you were saying, your grandfather's event, and he told the media, and he was forthright, and he told the world, was 2 weeks before the Roswell crash. So your grandfather really started something, but your grandfather's discussed in the Majestic 12 documents. Isn't that great?
Oh yeah, and I'm sure we have copies of that in the files because I've seen Majestic 12 documents and Project Blue Book documents, and I've had some interesting documents that I like. My friend that worked at a radio station, I gave him copies of them, and it admitted that the flying saucers and aliens are real, pretty much. It was like Project Blue Book documents, and we made copies of them, and he passed them out at the radio station.
That's awesome. Did your dad meet? Maybe he probably did. Did your dad ever meet Dr. J. Allen Hynek? Do you know?
Oh yeah. See, Hynek was a debunker, and he
at first.
Yeah, it made my grandfather furious because he said that what my grandfather saw was swamp gas, and it was definitely not swamp gas.
He said what your grandfather saw at Mount Rainier was Mount Rainier.
Yeah,
like no way.
Yeah, there's no swamp gas on Mount Rainier. But anyhow, he eventually became a believer in my grandfather towards the end, I've heard. Because in the beginning he was just a debunker, but he became a believer right here at the end of his career.
Well, I'm good friends with Paul Hynek. I'll see him at Contact in the Desert. I will ask him. I'll ask him for you. I'll let you know. I promise. Race number 6, please. Shanelle, your grandfather wrote a book called The Coming of the Saucers. I printed it out from something you sent me. So I haven't read it yet, and I really want to. But can you please tell us a little bit about what that book was all about?
Well, the first 100 pages are about his sighting that, when he saw the 9 flying saucers over Mount Rainier. And then the rest of the book is about the Maury Island incident. And Ray Palmer had a friend named Fred Chrisman, and they devised this, I don't know, like they say that a UFOs crashed near Maury Island in Seattle, like Buren, Washington. It's outside of Seattle.
Right.
And I even have pieces of this craft that supposedly burnt and fell out of the sky. But
you do? You have pieces of it?
Yeah, because I went to the Maury Island festival that they have there, and there's this man that definitely like financed the festival, and it's all the Men in Black festival, because with the Maury Island incident, it's the first of Men in Black, like the first case of Men in Black, and
Wow.
so they call it the Men in Black festival, and it was so much fun. And I like sold books there and whatnot, but supposedly this happened before my grandfather's sighting even, and he investigated it because Ray Palmer from Fate magazine paid him $200 to fly to Seattle to investigate it with Fred Christman and his friend Harold Dahl. And it possibly definitely could have happened, but it's kind of urban legend at this point. It's been so long.
Right.
But my grandfather, it was definitely something that happened. Like the hotel was tapped. There were 2 Air Force men, and they were the men that went through my grandfather's mail that took out the letters that said that they were naming him a prophet, these church religious leaders. But the 2 Air Force guys that crashed near Kelso, they were my grandfather's friends. And he was so scared when he was flying out of Chehalis, or the Seattle area. His fuel line was shut off, and he almost crashed his airplane. And luckily he landed it okay. But for some weird reason, the 2 military airmen, and the Air Force was new. It was the Air Force.
Right.
They had perished, and it just scared the death out of him. But yeah, it was definitely something that happened.
Yeah. Race, can we see number 7? This is 1 year later after his sighting, 1948. I guess this is Ray Palmer's. Was Fate magazine? Is that right?
Yeah, Ray Palmer.
So this is the truth. The truth about the flying saucer. What year did your grandfather publish The Coming of the Saucer?
1952. I think it was 5 years after his sighting.
Okay, so this cover preceded the book. Interesting.
I have a copy of the book that has that on it.
That's really cool. Yeah. That's like I don't know. Did you ever see the very first Playboy magazine ever? It had Marilyn Monroe on the cover. Did you ever see that? Yeah. This is like in ufology. This would be like Playboy with Marilyn Monroe.
I know. This is definitely some.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Dan, was this the first edition of Fate magazine in 48?
It says volume something, number something. You know what, Race? I don't know, but
I think it was the first edition. I think.
Isn't that cool? It could be. It's like Playboy with Marilyn Monroe. All right, race number 8, please. All right, this was interesting. I'd never heard of this before. Obviously, they did this in '69, but your grandfather's, I guess, Time did a special report and sort of dedicated it to your grandfather. Do you have a copy of this?
Oh no, I would love a copy of that. I'll have to look for that on eBay.
Oh, have you not heard of this?
No, I've never heard of this. That was in 1969, though. That's probably why.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. As my mother would say, I found it on the Google machine. I found this on the Google machine. But I thought that was awesome because look, your grandfather's name is right up there.
Oh yeah.
Very cool. Okay, race number 9, please. All right, this Shanelle blew me away.
Oh yeah, I have a copy of this.
April 6, 1948, 1 year later, your grandfather wrote a note to President Harry Truman. And it says, "Your Honor, I understand there is enough evidence on hand by our intelligence and the people of your great country, to announce that flying discs, flying saucers, and other reported by reliable people throughout the world daily are aircraft from outer space. You know we are not making or flying these aircraft, and the United States is the most scientific nation on earth. Why should not America be at least the first to announce this great discovery, Kenneth Arnold?" Now, you realize, Shanelle, your grandfather is the pioneer of disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
This note to President Truman in 48, this is the first document I've ever seen that is deeply and sincerely requesting that the President of the United States tell the world about disclose ETs. And I thought this was just wonderful.
Yeah,
Do you
and
have-
his
do you
friend, my mom has a copy of that, if not the original. But my mom's been like, we inherited the estate, so we have a lot of the documents that my grandfather.
I'll tell you that if you sold that at Contact in the Desert, like at an auction, I guess you get some real. And just real quick, we have to take a break, but real quick, race number 10. Just real quick, number 10 here. We can get this. And your grandfather met President Eisenhower too.
Yeah, he ran for governor of Idaho, and so on the campaign trail, he met President Eisenhower.
It's just awesome. I just love that. Okay, let's take a break, pay some bills. When we come back, we'll talk to Shanelle about her grandfather on a personal level and about Shanelle's life on a personal level. Be right back.
Hey, UFO conference enthusiasts. We've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
The Unx Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unx Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Paranormal Tonight, if I could speak English. And I'm Dan Harary. Let's bring back Shanelle. And there she is. Race, can we look at number 11, please? Okay, so Shanelle, let's talk about Kenneth Arnold, the person, right? Where was he from? What did he do, during his earlier years? And give us a flavor of who your wonderful grandfather, who he was.
Yeah, he grew up in North Dakota and he was an Eagle Scout. And this is his picture of him completing his Eagle Scout for the Boy Scouts.
Look how proud he is, right?
Yeah, he definitely felt like it was his duty, like the Cub Scout oath, to report and what he saw.
And he did.
And so he, and he did the right thing by doing it. But he used to say he was the unfortunate goat that did it because of all the, debunking he would always, get from people that didn't believe, because it was so new back then, but then it did start the summer of saucers. Everybody started seeing flying saucers after my grandfather's sighting. And they don't know why, but he definitely was the pioneer who started the modern UFO era.
He did. Shanelle, do you think he ever wished that it hadn't happened?
No, he probably died a little disappointed because he kind of let the copyright of his book go because he was so sick with cancer at the end of his life. But he felt like he never got an answer from the government. He had a friend that had a reel-to-reel of a UFO, and he sent it in to the government, explain this UFO in this tape. And they cut it out, sent it back to him and said, there's nothing here to see. And he was so irate. Wow. But, he was going to do seminars at the Fork and Knife Club, but then he was kind of shut down before he could even do them when he had, made pamphlets. And I do have one. And it was like the flying saucer as I saw it by Kenneth Arnold. This is all laminated. But the whole thing with that is they were still investigating his case. And they didn't want him speaking public. They made it a crime to talk about UFOs almost. His friend in the military said, the military can eliminate their own men. You really should be quiet about this subject, and kind of silenced him. But his friend in turn saw, he became a believer because they both saw a UFO banking in a cloud because they were both pilots and they were flying one day together. And they both saw a UFO banking in a cloud. So his friend was a believer. But,
right.
It's just my grandfather felt like he really couldn't be public with it. That's why in his lifetime, he was never really a member of any national organization or anything. He did do the 1977 UFO Congress. And that was like probably the last main thing he did besides his interview he did in England. I think that's part of the clips you were showing in the beginning. When he was very old and, whatnot. But yeah, he just, kind of was a recluse after everything and all the fame that he got, from being the first person to report flying saucers.
Incredible. Race number 12. Let's see what we have here. This is a nice picture. That's a cool car. Do you know what that was?
Oh, yeah, one of his cars. No, yeah, it was one of his cars. And this is in Boise, Idaho, where we live. And he's just looking up in the sky, looking for an answer.
Looking for the next setting. Your grandfather was a good-looking man. I mean, he looked like an actor almost.
Well, gosh, they put him in Twin Peaks. They made him a character in the book Twin Peaks. That Kenneth Arnold. I don't know if they say he's flying saucers in the book because I haven't read it, but they actually made him a character in Twin Peaks because Twin Peaks is kind of in the Northwest area.
That's right. Race number 13. This is a cool one. Did you ever fly with him, or you were too young?
Oh no, he passed away when I was 7, but my mom flew a lot with my grandfather into rural areas because he sold fire safety equipment, so that was his business, and he needed airplanes to fly into rural areas, and he was also part of Idaho's search and rescue, and he would fly prisoners back and forth to prisons in Idaho. So he definitely, was a very well-respected man. And this is like in his older years. I'm guessing this is taken in the 70s, and that was probably his last airplane.
Very cool.
He had to sell both of his airplanes.
Number 14, Race. All right. So Shanelle, you sent this to me. What is that again?
Okay, so he had a uranium mine, and
Uranium.
I couldn't believe it. He was holding uranium, and he died of colon cancer. Go figure. He died of cancer. But this is his uranium from his uranium mine, and it collapsed, so he had to abandon the project. But I just couldn't believe he was holding uranium, but that's actually uranium.
That's amazing. Wow. Well,
Isn't that crazy?
unfortunately, unfortunately, cancer is probably leaving that ore and going right into his palms of his hands.
Oh yeah, definitely. Before we knew, what would happen.
Yeah, but that's a hell of an interesting picture.
Yeah.
Race 15. All right, this is your grandmother, I assume?
My grandmother Doris and my grandfather, and it looks like they're just like at a dinner date or something, but they were a cute couple.
Very sweet. Were you close to both of them?
Yeah, my grandmother Grandy, she lived until I was 13, and so she died in the dream house my grandfather built for her, and my mom inherited it, and we're still trying to keep it in the family, but it's got like a view. And my grandfather bought a lot of property before developers snatched it up here in town, and my grandfather and grandmother, he did build her her dream house, so he loved her a lot.
They look like a very nice couple.
Yeah.
And they look like they were meant to be together. Good looking people.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, race 16. Okay, so Shanelle, how old? This is you and your grandfather.
Yeah,
How old were you when you first started to hear about your father's amazing stories? And
as long as I can remember. This is him holding me when I was a baby, but yeah, as long as I can remember. I mean, I thought there were aliens and looking in through my window in the bathroom I just grew up around the subject of the paranormal and new age beliefs of my family. Because they're really, religion didn't explain anything. It's almost like you have to start your own new religion to figure things out. About why the book of Enoch was taken out of the Bible. I mean, flying saucers. The flying saucers have always been here, and he was chosen by God to wake everyone up, and I don't understand why we forgot about them, to begin with.
Yeah, there's so much evidence. I interviewed Richard Dolan a few weeks ago, and I like you, Shannon, I believe that they've been here for a very long time. I strongly believe they helped to craft modern day mankind. Because our ancestors were monkey men with sticks and twigs trying to make fire, and now we're sending things to Mars. And Richard Dolan said, Dan, I've been studying this for years and years, and in his opinion, he doesn't think that's the case. And I said, Richard, have you ever had this debate with Eric Von Daniken or Giorgio Tsoukalos? And he goes, I'd love to. And I said, Richard, I would pay money to see that debate on a stage. Race number 17. All right, so that's you and your mommy and your granddad.
Yeah,
tell us about your mommy.
Oh, my mom, she just loves me a lot. We lost my brother last year, so that's been really hard on the family. But this is before he was born. This is the house my grandfather built. Like, you can kind of see the view lot, but we were in a boat. That's probably the boat that I went fishing in the pond that my grandfather had in the backyard. That's an irrigation canal, but he made a pond out of it. My mom to this day gets ducks that will, nest there and have their little babies and stuff. But yeah, growing up, we'd swim in that pond, but then there ended up being leeches. So then we stopped swimming in it so much, because it's like a farm irrigation canal,
It looks pretty idyllic. It looks like a beautiful, is that, so your mom now lives in that home in the back?
She does. She lives in that home, and she's done in the landscaping like crazy, but our family's lived there since 1972 on that property, and it's an acre, and it's like a view lot in Meridian, Idaho, which is outside of Boise, Idaho. But my grandfather, always bought property, and then he'd sell it, and it'd get developed by big developers that made lots of money off of it, and he never was able to be lucky in selling property. But this property, if it ever does get sold, it will definitely, be $1 million property,
Yeah. So he in addition to his story, he left you another legacy as well.
Oh, yeah.
How old is your mom now?
Oh, she's 70, and we get together and do things every once in a while, but she's just too old to really travel much. We did the Phenomenon. I wasn't in that with James Fox, but had a lot to do with getting my mom to even be a part of it, because she just really didn't want to travel. She's just the type that just likes being a homebody, and
Right.
and I dragged her down there to do that movie, and she's in it for a minute. But yeah, my mom, she felt like, she wanted to do things when she was younger, but she never had a book. And The Coming of the Saucers, we never knew how to republish that, and that fell in my lap. And
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Don't go there yet. I
Okay.
want to when I ask you. But is your
Yeah.
father still with us?
My father, yeah, he's battling lung cancer
No,
right
I'm
now, but
sorry.
he's a vet, and he's getting the $1 million treatment.
Good.
His surgery to remove his cancer was like $500,000, and now he's doing the radiation and chemotherapy and then radiation. But
Wow. We wish
he's
him.
probably going to beat it and be here for another 5 years. He's just in really good spirits, so I think that'll work out.
We wish him well. My dad passed of prostate cancer, and I miss him every day. Race number 18. All right, this is you and your brother, I believe, of your
Yeah,
grandfather.
yeah, but
What was your brother's name?
Cameron, we were 5 days apart, so every year we'd have our birthday parties together, even though we're 2 years and 5 days apart. We were both little Leo kids, but yeah, our birthday parties, we'd always have them together. And my grandfather was holding my baby brother Cameron, and that's just me right next to him. But
That's
yeah,
very
that's
cute.
when I was
Very,
little.
very. My parents had an orange crushed velvet couch in the 70s, exactly like what looks like right there. That's such a 70s piece of furniture, I think.
Oh yeah.
Iconic. All right, Race, you can pull that one down, please. No, not yet, Race, not yet. Okay. All right, you said, and you mentioned this earlier. You said when your grandfather passed in '84, he was disappointed that disclosure hadn't happened, but did he make any kind of money from his fame, or was it all just like this chore? Was this
No.
like
I mean,
this weight on his shoulders? It sounds
yeah,
like.
no, I mean, he got offered $50,000 to make a fictional book in the 50s from Doubleday Books, and turned it down because he didn't want his story fictionalized. He wanted it to be the truth, and
Okay.
that really made my grandmother really upset, because they really could have used the money. And Ray Palmer never really gave him much from the profits of The Coming of the Saucers, and did give him the copyright to it, but he never finalized it, so it's public domain. But then I was able to republish it on Amazon, and so I have a book now. But my mom had a book project going on, and it just kind of fell apart, and she felt like her youth is gone, and she just can't do what she wanted to do when she was younger, to talk about how she believed that my grandfather was just the most truthful, honest man, and did what he thought he needed to do for his country. And any pilot's supposed to report what they see, but even until they admitted UAPs are real, if pilots reported flying saucers, they could be fired, just for
Well, even last summer when David Grush went before Congress, he said that there had been threats on his life and his family, and people were discrediting him. Even now, it's still happening. It's just incredible. It's so obvious. It's that there's something remarkable happening, and whoever MJ-12 or the Men in Black, whoever runs, and it's not our presidents and it's not our Congress, but whoever runs. Stephen Bassett calls it the truth embargo. Whoever runs the truth embargo, they're doing a hell of a good job, because still to this day it hasn't been revealed, right?
Mm-mm.
It's just crazy.
But I definitely believe like the Book of Enoch was taken out of the Bible on purpose, and like they had something to do with our creation. Just even the Anunnaki creating us, or we're just, that's the missing link.
Yes.
It has to be them just, creating us to be these people. And I do believe the flood happened, because many religions, talk about the flood happening. And I also kind of believe there were giants in the world, because they find giant skeletons, but then the Smithsonian covers it all up. So
right. That's exactly right. Boy, you're spot on. Years ago, my son went to Machu Picchu years ago. And after he called me, he goes, "Dad, the steps up the mountain, are so far apart. He said that only giants could have
Oh,
made one
wow.
step to the next step to the, they're not for regular humans. He said they
Oh,
were
wow.
enormous in between the steps. So yeah, there were giants.
Oh,
There were
wow.
giants.
That's
Explains
crazy.
explains a lot of things. All right, Race. Now we can do 19, please. All right. So Chanel, that's a wonderful photo.
Yeah.
You inherited your grandfather's legacy. You've been on George Norrie and UFO conventions. You met Stanton Friedman and other major people. What is it like for you personally to carry on your grandfather's legacy?
Yeah, I just feel like I need to spread the word that, this is what we've been, the answer that's part of our creation. This is part of who we've been, and we need to wake up and, listen to, what's happening by different experiencers of these craft and the ETs, and definitely I just want to spread his word that he believes they're the link between the living and the dead. They're there. It's like it's right there. We can touch it, but we can't touch it.
Okay.
Beyond disclosure. They want to
Right.
say that flying saucers have just started happening with the UAPs, which is not in it.
No.
They've always been here. They're depicted in Renaissance paintings,
Right.
they're depicted in cave art,
Right.
UFOs in cave art.
Petroglyphs. Absolutely right.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so he just was chosen to awaken us, and I don't understand how we'd forgotten about them to begin with,
Yeah.
So
Race number 20, please. Yeah, that's a cute picture. You and late Stanton Friedman. What was
yeah.
he like? I never got to meet him. What was he like?
He cracked up. We were both Leos, and he was telling me how he basically put himself through college, and this is like when we went out to a restaurant when he was here in Boise, Idaho. But he met my grandfather at the 1977 UFO Congress in Chicago, Illinois, and he was one of the last people alive that had known my grandfather. And I told him we took him to the airport, and I told him I loved him, and he died only a couple years after that, because I knew I was never going to have an opportunity to see the guy again. But he was just a very kind individual, and he's the whole reason the Roswell thing got popular.
That's
And
right.
and it was weird because I'd seen old clips of my grandfather. They were always mentioning him a lot, but then Roswell kind of did take over. But
Yeah, but he was like the opening act for the Beatles, right?
yeah,
Your
yeah,
grandfather. Yeah. He was like the Dave
yeah.
Clark 5 opening, and then the Beatles came 2 weeks later, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it was exactly 2 weeks. He had his sighting on the 24th of June, and they believe, I think the Roswell UFO landed on the 2nd of July or something like
And
that.
then I think it was right. And then Roswell was discovered on I think the 7th or the 8th of July, something like that.
Yeah.
A week later. Race number 21, please. This is a cute picture. So this is what is it called the Chileas?
Yes, Chehalis Flying Saucer Party. And it's because when he had his sighting on June 24th, 1947, he left Chehalis, Washington, and they have a little museum there, and they donated some mail that he got from a correspondence of this UFO cult that wasn't even known about in California. And they did a little clip on YouTube called, it's a little movie that this guy Eli Watson made, but it's called Mountain of God, Mysterious UFO Cult. But
Okay.
anyhow, they contacted my grandfather after his sighting. But anyhow, yeah, this is a mural in Chehalis. I'm kind of getting off the point. But yeah, you have his
so
red
cool.
his red airplane, and then the flying
Right.
saucers. And
Now, Chanel, I'm going to be critical here. There's only 8 saucers on that.
there's one on the side too. I know, because I
it
think
hidden?
that is a
Is it
thing.
hidden?
There's one that's hidden. Yeah,
Okay.
there's one
All right.
that's hidden. I know, because I noticed that too.
As long as there's 9, then we're good. Yeah, that's a wonderful photo. I love this one. Just
Yeah.
looks like fun. So is that an annual event?
Yeah, it's an annual event, and it happens in September, into September, and usually my daughter and I go, and sometimes my husband comes along, and it's about 10 hours away from where I live. So, I just kind of wish I still live on the West Coast like I did back when I was younger. I lived in the Portland area, but I'm, and where my grandfather loved to live in Idaho with the 4 seasons, and
Must be
A lot of
beautiful.
people love it here. Yeah.
If I ever come out there, I promise I'll look you up. Race number 22. Okay, so you republished, like you were saying earlier, the book last year, right? You
Yeah.
republished it on Amazon. How did you go about getting the rights, and how did you go about republishing this book?
The Maury Island people, Charlotte Lefevre and Philip Lipson, typed the whole book up, but it needed to be proofread. And a good friend of mine knew how to put a book on Amazon, and she proofread the whole thing. I paid her a little bit. Okay. And then my mom decided to share some rare pictures that have never been released of, like, when he was on the campaign trail, when he ran for governor of Idaho. And you know, like
the one with Eisenhower.
Yeah, there's two pictures of him meeting President Eisenhower. There's also one of him standing with, like, President Eisenhower and some other military officials.
Cool.
But yeah,
cool.
I republished it, and it's only $19.47 on Amazon.
That's great. The price is $19.47. That's brilliant. That's called that's called good marketing. Good marketing.
The Imposter is like $10 more, and they don't have any pictures. So
1947. That's the most clever thing I've heard in a long time. That's brilliant. The next slide, please, Races. I think it's 23. All right. So in here, Shanelle, on the back of your book, you write what I'm searching to find is the connection, unless this was your grandfather. What I'm searching to find is the connection between God, aliens, religion, and reality. Are those your thoughts or your grandfather's thoughts?
Those are my thoughts. I'm a philosophy major, definitely, and I credit Earl Grey on the back too, because he helped me in college write this. I'm like, Earl, give me a quote from my essay. And so he gave me a quote from my essay, and it just happened to be in this. But I wrote some, some UFO stories and essays in college. So I do have some stuff I could put together for a brochure or something someday. But
you literally have ufology in your blood, Shanelle.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I wrote a lot about it. I wrote a lot about it in college.
You and Paul Hynek and the Kathy Martin, the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, and Travis Walton and Whitley Strieber. So, all you guys have ufology in your blood, What do you think, just personally, Erace, you can take that one down. You can show the next one. That's the last one, 24. That's a cute picture. That's you and your grandfather, your grandparents. Look how hot your grandparents were. They look like movie stars. They really look like movie stars. Look at that.
Yeah.
That could be from a Cary Grant movie in the 40s.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a lovely picture. All right, we can kill that one. All right, so Shanelle, what do you think your grandfather thought that he saw that day in 47?
He just, at the end of his life, believed there the connection between living and the dead somehow, and he believed they're possibly multidimensional. He just believed in the fact that you just can't travel too far through space. It just didn't seem possible. And he's had 8 sightings, by the end of his life, and some of his sightings, he felt like the craft he saw were almost alive, just the way that they were translucent and beat like the beating of a heart sometimes.
Wow.
The way they flew. But he definitely, my mom's trying to document all this, because she's getting older, and she's afraid possibly she's not going to be around. So we're trying to get things together, and she needs to do like the home movies. She needs to get those all digitalized, and I'm doing the Houston MUFON conference in July. Good. And so that's going to be definitely, get my name out there, and quite the trip.
Are you going to bring copies of the republished book with you?
Yeah, I am going to bring some copies of the book to sell, and
you definitely
hopefully, I can sell 30, 40 books. They'll make me happy. But I want to get my name out there so I can get into some conventions, so I can sell the Coming of the Saucers, and bring the name back to the family.
Well, if I'm involved with Contact next year, which I probably will be, I'm the publicist for it, and I'm producing some sessions. But we could, you should be a Contact next year.
That MUFON event, incidentally, is in Dallas.
Yeah, it's Dallas. I don't know why I was thinking
it's in Irving.
Houston, Dallas, they're all the same race. They're
I don't know if there's anything left. There's not much left of Houston after all those tornadoes, but yeah, it's in Dallas in July.
All right, Shanelle, so you're going to Dallas. Thank you. Don't take a plane to Houston. Shanelle, where do you think we are today with disclosure, and do you think it will it will happen in our lifetimes?
I believe it's just right there with, I mean, they just had this movie come out called The Anunnaki. Oh my gosh, like we're getting there, just going back to old beliefs. I was a philosophy major, and Hare Krishnas, their Vedas talk about the flying Vihanas, and they're 5,000 years old. So I mean, there's these flying saucers are written about in certain material, and I do believe there's a connection between the living and the dead, and that's what I want to get out there. But a lot of people want to believe they're from other, places in space, and possibly, but I think that they're the angels in the Book of Enoch. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And
Yeah.
I've, been an experiencer too. When I lived in Portland, I had a UFO experience, and that definitely changed me. I almost felt like I possibly could have been abducted, but I've just never been regressed.
Well,
So
I've had 3 experiences. Do you have a list? I'd love to see this. Do you have a list in addition to the famous one of your grandfather's other 7 UFO
see,
sightings?
my mom's trying to make sure that's in the files and together for me, because she's leaving me the files, when she finally decides to
Because
pass them along.
Because
But
if you had the dates, the locations, and what he saw, I can, I mean, you could too, but I could get that to Richard Dolan and Nick Pope and Steve Bassett and Whitley
oh
and
wow.
Travis Walton, and I mean, I can get that to everybody because I think we would all be very interested to
Oh
to
yeah.
to get that. If you ever put that list together, send it to me and send it to Earl too. We can get it out to everybody.
That'd be awesome. No,
It's very cool.
my mom doesn't share things unless there's like usually money involved. So it's really hard to kind of get stuff out there. But
Yeah.
she's really, shared a lot, and I shared a lot. I'm the one that started it because there was no good pictures of my grandfather out there. That was a problem for a bit. And I, made sure some pictures were released of him because he was a good-looking guy.
Yeah, he was. I think it's really quite nice that you are keeping your grandfather's spirit alive and his message and his story. He was a remarkable person. After my dad passed, I discovered that he was involved with the U.S. Army on reverse engineering of UFOs, and that's how I wrote my book After They Came. So that happened after my father died, and I dedicated that to him. So
Oh yeah.
the people that came before, we should acknowledge them and be grateful to them. And people like you and I and Paul Hynek and Kathy Martin, we should share the stories of our relatives so that everybody knows what happened.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I believe our technology did come from them. So that's great that you that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you
yeah.
know
Real
that.
quick, I saw an incredible UFO with my dad in 1970. I was 14. I was thrilled. He was bored, and then 3 days after he died, I went to a restaurant to get some food. And while I was waiting for my food, Chanel, a digital download of this is in 2017 now, a digital download of the 1970 UFO sighting with my father played in the air like a color hologram, 3D hologram in front of my eyes. It played. And that's when I realized and my father had just died. And I realized, oh my God, my father knew what that UFO was. And I then researched him, and I discovered he helped to invent military drones for the Army. Top secret. He never told anyone, including my mother.
Oh
So,
wow.
so I'm doing a lecture at Contact called "How My Father Built UFOs for the U.S. Military." So
Oh
fun.
wow.
So you and I are kindred spirits. We have it in our DNA, I suppose. What do you have coming up? We have to wrap. Other than the Dallas event, what else do you have
Um
going
yeah,
on?
I'm possibly doing the Chehalis thing again this year, and just hopefully get my name out there to get invited to more conferences, just to sell
Yeah.
some books. That's what I'm trying to do, get in the circuit, because it's really the time for disclosure. There's so many conferences all over the place all the time about this. And
Well, I'm glad me and
yeah.
Earl. I'll talk to Earl. We're glad to get your story and you out there more. You should be out there. And I love the fact that your book is 1947.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's so great.
It's cheaper than The Imposter. The Imposter book has no pictures, and they want like 30 for their paperback.
Right.
So
And,
yeah.
and yours is the real deal. Last thing,
Yeah.
we have to wrap. How can people reach you?
Facebook, message me on Facebook or my email. Can I give out my
Yes,
email?
please. Yes.
It's my name, Shanelle, SHANELLE.Schanz, SCHANZ @hotmail.com.
Perfect. Okay. I hope people write to you. Thank you for this went very quickly. We could have done another hour, I'm sure, but thank you. It was so nice to meet you. Lovely to meet you.
Yes.
And
very nice.
send me the list of those other sightings. I would personally love to see that. And
Well,
I hope if you ever come to LA, let me know. And I hope we should get you out to some of those other UFO conferences in the coming future.
awesome. Keep in touch.
I will. Thank you very much for your time.
right.
Next week, everyone, I will be live. I will be live from Contact in the Desert instead of live from Hollywood. A week from tonight, live from Contact in the Desert. I will be interviewing Ron James. Ron James, and if you probably know him, last year he released Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations. In a few months, he'll be releasing Accidental Truth Next. It's the sequel, and he will be doing a sneak peek. Contact at the Desert. Get your tickets now, contactatthedesert.com. I'll see you next week live from Contact in the Desert. Thanks, and see you soon.